So here we are recording. Going to be looking at the Futures Mirror. This developed 15 years ago or so, and when I was looking at different ways in which embodied awareness carries through in the way we construct futures. So it grows out of the relationship between memory and our cultural backgrounds, and the capacity for us to envisage beyond that, or to stretch it, or perhaps also leverage from it, that sort of creative traditionalism that I was talking about in my lecture and so on. So those sorts of thinking processes sit behind this, and it's a lot of fun. Always creates a lot of really nice energy in the room whenever I'm doing it. And I'm thinking it will be fun to perhaps, we've got an Oceania Futures event coming up in March next year. Anybody want to come to Australia for a holiday? Come and play with us, please. I'm already advertising it. It's 26th and 27th of March. And I will, I think, run a Futures Mirror because I haven't done so for a couple of years now, and it'll be a lot of fun to do it again, I think. So the invitation is there. You can start saving and planning right now, okay? So let me go to share screen. And as I was saying before we started the recording, I ran this in Taiwan quite a few years ago, which is why we've got the Chinese symbol there. And for me, the thinking is it should lead into the future sense of voice. So that's why I got voice there. But it's very much about drawing on the past and our constructions of the past to make sense of where we're going, and also to give us the energy to think about or think beyond our cultural conditioning. So I have this little framing solution statement. How we frame the problem or a solution depends on our context. So Jenny working in one context, Barbara's working with Sahel, Alice is on a farm, Caitlin is slaving away as a totally exploited teacher at a university, and Nock is giving talks to people about youth futures or something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but so each, and of course she's in Thailand, Barbara's in France, and you other three are in Scandinavia, 2 in Sweden, 1 in Denmark. So how do we make sense of all of this? Well, it depends on our context, and we need to understand that the context is both macro and micro. So there is the big context, which is what I'm going to look at first, and then there's the micro context of how we channel the context into our own perceptions and our own sense making, and how it shapes basically individual consciousness. Okay, so there's the macro and the micro. Is there anything that you want to ask about that before I move on to the next slide? All good? All right. So let's jump to the next slide. So one example I give draws on this wonderful story, Who Speaks for Wolf? Now, I have the book that this comes out of, had it for, 20 or 30 years, actually, a long time now. The pedagogical reflection here that's in green is actually a really nice series of processes of questions that you can do in your own time. Who Speaks for Wolf is essentially saying who's not in the conversation that could be in the conversation. It's also drawing on Native American experience and oral tradition. So that many people now know about the 7 generational thinking of Native American thinking, but not so many people know that Native American decision making always attempted to include the silent, the voiceless. So wolf doesn't have a voice in the obviously the sense of that we understand voice, where we speak and make sense. But Wolf nonetheless has agency, intention, and so on. And this story reflects on how a tribe who made a mistake about not listening to Wolf then set up a social process when their decision making to include an individual in the you might call it the parliament, or that sort of space where they all meet, who will, having listened to everything, will then stand up and, thinking in the logic or habitus of the wolf, will then speak for Wolf in order to perhaps challenge some of the assumptions around which that thinking was occurring, or that decision-making process was occurring. The reference for the book itself is underneath the slide. If you actually want to go and find the book, you will find it there. So it's all up for you, and only if you want to go and chase it. It's just that I found it a really rich example of some of what we're trying to do when we do Futures Mirror work. Now, as I said, I was running this series of processes in Taiwan. And so I thought, well, what are the key hallmarks for Chinese heritage thinking? Okay, civilizational thinking. Well, they have 5 astrological types. They have metal, wood, water, earth, and fire, and they combine these to understand Chinese personality, identities, and astrological configurations. And they also combine them with their Chinese years, so, the year of the rabbit. Well, what kind of rabbit is it? Is it a wood rabbit, or an earth rabbit, or a fire rabbit? Or is it a metal ox? That kind of thing. So they use these terms to think about and analyze the astrological information that they're working on. Now, Futures itself is not astrological. It's not seeking to predict anything, as in looking at the predictive drive of astrology has always been to try and anticipate certain things through these lenses. But these are very powerful cultural lenses. Okay, and I asked the people in the audience what characterizes these 5 qualities, and people started answering, saying fire's like this, metal's like this, and so on. But to jump to a European context, come on, where is it? Oops, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. I thought I was going there, but so the cultural voice dialogue, I'll have to go back one step and explain that. So voice dialogue work is the work of Helen Sidra Stone, and I don't cite them here, but I've cited them multiple times in my work, and I've picked them up because Sahel and Ayatollah started using their work about 20 years or so ago. Helen Sidra Stone argue that we are not unitary beings, but that within our own consciousness there are multiple voices at work. So you might, given that you're all women here, you might be the good daughter, or the good the good partner or wife, or the good mother. You might also have the professional voice that works for you. So you're having to Knox stayed up until 3 in the morning or something, smashing away at some work she had to do for today. So she had a professional goal to meet. You might also have cultural orientations. How, let's say, how Scandinavian are you compared to all your Scandinavian friends or your Scandinavian family? Or how Italian are you, given that, there's that question of who are you and where do you sit? So a cultural voice dialogue, and this is where I use these Chinese symbols, I throw them all in there, is another way of thinking about it. So if you have a metal voice, what might it be? If you have a wood voice, what might it be? And so on. So the voice dialogue work is what we're doing actually with the masks in this Futures Mirror process. So that's where I'm going, but I'm thinking that there is a cultural voice dialogue that sits behind our personal voice dialogues. So if you look at Sahel Ayatollah's work, you'll see that he doesn't do cultural voice dialogue so much, but he's very focused on the inner CLA, for instance, which is how do we understand and make sense of and unpack our own voice within a context. The slide that I thought was coming is the slide that's coming now, which is the other typologies slide. So I was using Chinese astrological or zodiacal configurations, but there are different kinds of typologies that we can work on at the cultural level. I don't know if any of you are into Ayurveda. It's a therapeutic method of medicine that's deeply rooted in ancient Indian philosophy. You've also got in Islam, okay, the four humours of Unani, okay, so, and they're very similar to the European humours of the melancholic, the earth, the water, the air, okay, and the fire, which of course are very similar. You would see them straight away to with the Chinese, right? Now I'm going to stop there for a second, okay, and just sort of breathe out and say, okay, so I'm giving you these typologies. These are at the cultural or civilizational level. And then you might be thinking, well, you know, you might think of someone you know. You might know someone who's melancholic, someone who's always seemed to be chill, that's phlegmatic. Or you might know somebody who always seems to go with the flow and just, you know, manages to cope well with all sorts of changes. They're the water type. Or the warm wet is the sanguine. They're the people who tend to sit back and watch the world go by. And then, of course, there are the fiery people who jump up and down and are quick to anger or, you know, explosive outbursts. And then very quickly they've forgotten about it almost. Those fire types. So we can think of them in that sense. Now, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to open this up again so I can see you better. Is this kind of typological work that I'm offering you, does it make sense? And if you could talk to me a little bit about it. So let's say the European one, very much part of the literary theory of medieval, Renaissance, Reformation, sort of let's say 13th century through to 18th century European literary traditions. Okay, and of course part of the medicinal, you know, work before we ended up with kind of more positivist, empiricist medicines coming along, the allopathic tradition, for instance. So, what do you think, Alice? Is this making sense to you? What I'm saying so far?
Sorry, it is.
If you want to turn your screen off, turn the camera off. It might help.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, maybe, is that okay? It might help.
Yeah, that's fine. It's more, I'm just wondering, you know, this is the prelude to the exercise. So I'm giving them this cultural, or giving people like yourself this cultural layer. And I just want to know whether I'm making sense to you, or whether you're thinking, you know, what the hell am I talking about? Because if you haven't experienced, you know, Ayurveda or the humours of European literature,
it makes sense.
You might not get it. Yeah. Okay, it makes sense. Lilia, how about you? What are you thinking as I was going through this? Were you going, oh yeah, or were you going, What's happening in your head?
I'm curious about the Islam one. I think I get a grasp for Europe and Ayurveda.
Yep.
In the sense that, if I understand correctly, it's a way to divide. It's a way to connect one person with a way of being.
Yep.
In a certain moment. It might change.
Yeah.
I have experience with Ayurveda. I can understand Europe, but I don't get Islam.
Well,
can you tell us a little bit more?
I'll say a little bit about Islam. Islam set the foundations up for European thinking about medicine and health. So those four humours, you know, you find them, the blood is sanguine. The bile is the phlegmatic. No, the bile is which one? Choleric. And black bile, I believe, could be the earth, and what's the other one? Oh, phlegmatic is obviously, phlegm is phlegmatic. So there are a number of very important Islamic medical philosophers from the 6th and 7th and 8th centuries whose work were translated around the year 1000 to the year 1100 that then influenced the way Europeans thought about the human body and these humours, you might say. So they talk about humour, and the European one, you often see the word humour used in that context. So they, and of course they're both Judeo-Christian. They come out of that Judeo-Christian sort of philosophy as well, which means that there's probably actually alongside them, the Jewish tradition probably has something similar, but I don't know whether I'm right or not. I'm just guessing at that one. Nock, how about you? And I know, I'm assuming Thailand probably has its own set of symbols as well for this, or, you know, reference points for this sort of thing as well, maybe.
Yeah, I never mentioned actually that I'm genetically, or yeah, both my parents are from or my ancestors are from China. So even though I live here, yeah, I'm like 100% Chinese by blood. And yeah, the blood is actually one of the, yeah. But anyways, so yeah, I'm kind of familiar with both Chinese and Indian, but I'm looking it up as well on the Islam one is quite interesting. The yellow bile and the black bile.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my first time hearing about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes sense, these typologies, when we're thinking about cultural filters.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Like yeah, like especially in Thailand, we incorporate it with even food. So let's say that or even Chinese, like let's say if I feel a little bit cold today, then I would, and then there's certain spice or certain kind of herb that I would use in order to kind of levels or to make me feel balanced, you know, and pretty much you could pretty much a lot of households would grow those kind of things like basil or lemongrass or you know, like even lime or yeah, like you can
Yeah.
add these things to make it to make your body feel balanced and to kind of like level your mood your mood. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And you're using that word balance a number of times. And that's what all of these are about. If you're unwell in some way, or also psychically, let's say having a mental illness, it's always about balance, or imbalance is probably the better way of putting it. So thank you. Barbara, any thoughts from you?
Well, I was just looking at the Islam one as well because I'm not familiar with it either, and I just found an article that seems quite interesting. I'll share it in the chat, and yeah, so basically it corresponds to particular temperament, but also every humor has a physiological role, and it's all about balance, like you say. So it makes sense. It's I find it quite interesting actually, like how each culture has their own way of framing this, but they kind of all relate to each other really. We all have this like underlying similarities on how we perceive characters and how we connect them to the environment around us and what physiological role they have within our body. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, you're right. And I like that way that you described it too. To me, they're holistic, and they are also they offer what I think of when people are in tune with the natural world. They offer natural explanations for physical things that we're expressing. I think that's really interesting as well. Caitlin, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I can see like there's almost like a way to codify different human behaviors or personalities
Mm.
In different cultures.
Yep.
And when I look at this slide, like I'm thinking of other examples, like with Europe, you could also think about like the planets. If we, if we bring in astrology, like if a person is ruled by Mars or Venus or Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I also thought there's astrology for the business major, which is the Myers-Briggs type.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's good. And what we see is that human desire to make sense of the world through pattern. That's what I'm always seeing. I always see pattern sitting behind anything that Indigenous people do, or even people in Silicon Valley. You know, they all come out. So Myers-Briggs would suit Silicon Valley folk quite well, for instance. And so it's there are ways in which we're trying to take a snapshot of reality and then almost like grammar say that's a verb, that's a noun, and so on, and to unpack it in certain ways. So the next point that I want to do turn to, then I'm just going to pull this back a little bit, is to say, okay, so we've got at the collective level, we have different ways to understand our experience of the world through cultural lenses. But to me, personal futures sit within collective futures, but they're always unique. There's always something about the personal that is going to, I wouldn't say disrupt, but it's certainly going to take elements from that broader cultural field, this cultural collective stuff here, and it becomes lived reality for an individual. So the personal voice dialogue looks slightly different. So just as the civilization and cultures have their own voices, so do we. In other words, as I said earlier, you know, are you a good daughter, a good partner, a good teacher, a good professional? All of us have these sub-voices within us. And each one is a narrative that makes sense of a certain dimension of your experience of the world you inhabit. So, Caitlin, you spoke last, and I said that, okay, so you work in a university at the moment. You're a sessional, which means that you get paid by the hour to come in, do a little bit of magic occasionally with students or in whatever context it might be, and then see you later. Okay, so that means that you have an institutional persona, but it's not as consolidated as, let's say, mine or Knock would be, because we both work within universities as, you know, full-time employees. So your voice in that context is there, and I've seen, of course, because I know you, I've seen you grow that voice over, 15 years or so at least, which has been terrific. But it's qualitatively different. Okay, whereas let's say if I go back to a past life incarnation of you when you used to take people through the prison in Boggo Road in Brisbane, that's where you're the tour guide, right? And I think being a tour guide, of course, is quite similar to being an educator or a teacher, but it's a very interesting shift in emphasis, you might say. So we have our own voices in this sense, and we're going to be thinking about this in a moment. So what kind of voices, how often do you experience the happy me? How often are you just going around feeling a little bit upbeat? Contrast that with the worried me. Okay, so how about that? How often are you the worry voice? Are you one of those people who sees a problem more often than not, as opposed to, you know, a good solution? Do you trust the future? Do you trust the world around you? Do you trust the people you have relationships with, and so on? How do you feel? Are you connected or disconnected? Okay, so the next one, of course, is the other side of it. Are you lonely, separated, or are you connected? And so on. So how about the distrusting, suspicious and distrusting? This is from 2011 or something. I'm looking at it thinking, why didn't I pair suspicious with trusting? But anyway, I didn't, did I? How, you know, and the spiritual me. And of course, what about when something goes wrong in the world, or you see some piece of news? How angry are you, you know? I want you to have a thought, think about that now, and to ask yourself, you know, how often do these voices, using the voice dialogue language, how often do they play out in your own experience of reality? So there was a template for a mask. So I'm going to be asking you in a moment to start working on this, but I think it's worth now stopping and breathing out. And I'm going to ask each of you, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'll stay there. So stop sharing. So here we are. Think about the kind of you that you might be. If I was doing this slide deck now, I would definitely have put a natural, unnatural. How civilized am I, as opposed to how much am I member of the trees and the things. You know, we had koalas last night in our yard. Koalas are these noisy, grumpy creatures who are drunk and smashed on psychedelics, living up in trees, having orgies. They have a lot of fun. So I relate a lot to the natural world simply because I live surrounded by that. In fact, just before I nearly stood on a snake out there. It was a big, lovely, cuddly snake, those pythons that strangle you. It wasn't a venomous snake. But yeah, so they're all about me. I would have put nature in there. I'd like you to take a moment, and maybe I should pause. No, I won't pause. We'll do this in real time like I did with the other. I'd like you each to think of a voice, okay, or a couple of voices that you would like to potentially explore, okay? Make a note, okay? Make a note of one or two voices that you're thinking, maybe I'll explore, because when I go back to the slide deck, we then walk through the process of generating the thinking and then the activity around mask making.
You mean our voice or others' voice?
No,
our
your
own voice.
Yeah, this is now about taking the mask making process personally, not so it's a personal voice.
And is it like a voice that you would like to understand better, or yeah?
Or to give voice to.
Okay, because that's not the
Because that's
same
really what
in
the
my head.
Future's Mirror is about. It's about giving voice. How do you express the concerns of the mask, or the, you know, the thinking of the mask? Well, it doesn't have to be a concern. It can be an aspiration, or it can be something that you would like to see more of, you know.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to back to share screen. So here we are. So there we go. So I'm asking you to, you've made maybe a short list, or maybe you've only written one voice down. Choose a voice that you know to be part of you. The righteous voice. Yeah, no. The sacred voice. The angry voice, the sad voice, the hopeful voice, the sad voice, the consumer voice, etc. It can be any of those, and obviously more. So what you need to do is you can take a mask template and decorate it to fit your voice. So If you've got your piece of paper there, you can draw a circle on it, or you can cut it out even. You might want to get scissors and cut out the mask template right now before you start. And one of the things that I have done with the masks, and I didn't put this down, I don't think, on the list, but I get something like, go to the kitchen and get a wooden spoon, so you can use sticky tape to stick your mask onto the wooden spoon, so you can hold the mask up, just like they do in those in Venice when they do Carnivale. You can have a stick or something like that. All right, so you're going to create a mask template and you're going to decorate it, and then we'll spend up to, I'll set my timer, I'll give you 15 to 20 minutes to decorate, all right? And that's going to be a long period of silence in this video, and so actually I will pause it there and just restart it. And if you're listening to this video, not obviously within the context of us right now working, you just pause the video, and create your own mask, and then when we kick back in, you can just restart the video at that point. So you've got a mask template, any kind, you can cut it out, tear it out, and once you've got it, we're going to go and find a mirror, and you're going to stand and look at yourself. And this is where you stand and you actually really slow down and you look at yourself. What do you see when you're wearing that mask? And what does your voice say to the world? All right. So that's the process. So I'm going to leave the share screen on, but I'm going to pause. There it is. Pause the video. Hey Siri, set timer 20 minutes. So
20 minutes starting now.
So my phone is on, ticking away. You've got 20 minutes to create a mask that matches in some way the voice that I've invited you to explore, okay? And you can turn your video screen off so that you're not feeling that I'm sort of prying on you or anything. And when I will leave my sound on, and I'm going to go make a cup of tea. And when we hear the phone calling us, we will come back in. You can turn your screens back on. All right, so yes.
Sorry, because it cut out again before earlier. I see now the list of the voices that you suggest, but can we take anything else as well?
Of course, anything else, etc. That's what the etc. means.
And the voice is looking, it's our voice to the future, or?
It's your voice to the past,
anyway.
present, or future. This is, remember,
Yes.
this
Okay.
is within the future sense of memory.
Yes.
So it's and that's why I did all that cultural stuff beforehand, because culture, of course, is a field of intelligibility that's built around shared or collective memory. Yeah, does that make sense? So we've done the cultural stuff. I've anchored it in thinking about your own voice dialogue. Now, if you've chosen a voice, you can start playing with it. You make a mask template by cutting it out any shape you like. I suggested, if you didn't hear it, go and get a stick, like a spoon that you stir things with in the kitchen, then sticky tape it onto the back of the mask. So it's like Carnivale in Venice, where you hold the mask up to your face. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yep.
That sort of thing. And then once you've done that, you've built a mask, you can stand in front of the mirror, and I'm asking you, what do you see and what does your mask say to the world?
Yeah. Okay. So because I got confused because some of the words here are like, quite emotional words, and other words feel like sustainable consumer feels. Yeah.
It's
we can
really
choose anything.
up to you. It's up to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. It's a pleasure. There we go. How exciting was that? Barbara is smiling, so you survived. That's good.
Marcus,
Your
Yes,
alarm scared me.
my ducks.
Yeah, your ducks. I was like, What is going on?
I've got to, hang on, I've got to,
Marcus,
yeah.
should we have already done the mirror bit?
No, we're going to, well, yeah, you could have done the mirror bit. I'm just looking here to, am I actually recording now or is it not recording?
You're recording.
Yeah, I thought I'd paused it. Maybe I didn't. Okay, well, we'll stay with that. So yes, if you didn't stand before the mirror and look at yourself, what and deal with what do you see, what does your voice say to the world? This is the next bit. So what does your voice say to the world? Then you sit in silence and you capture some of that as a message. So you'll write it down. It might be 5 words, 10 words. You know, it could even be a little bit longer. It shouldn't be very long, simply because the nature of this is more like a statement. Me, in my nature voice, might say something about, plant a tree and save the world type thing, or something, something like that. So what does your voice have to say? How does it speak? How do you give it form? Okay, and what you can do then, you can write it down by hand or you can type it onto a computer, whatever. And if you could take a photograph of your mask or of you standing in front of the mirror so we can see the mask, and then put the voice message with it, we'll then do because normally we'd pin it up on a wall. I didn't even think about it actually until about 5 minutes ago. I thought, oh, I should have created a mirror board or something so we could have all posted them up and seen them like we would in real life. But that's my mistake. I didn't do that. So what we'll do is what Caitlin and I did the other day, which was we'll photograph your voice, put your statement beneath it or alongside it, and then we'll go through and we'll share and we'll see what how we read one another's voices. So as I say here in the second part, pin the message and mask to a display wall. Okay, when all the masks and messages are up on the wall, what are you seeing there? How are all the voices? How do you feel? Remember, this is future's feeling that we're dealing with. So there's a feeling component. So we'll do this by breaking it up now, and we'll see where we end up.
Did you want us to take a picture and post it somewhere, Marcus?
Well, I thought maybe that caused a little bit of a time waste last time. Maybe each of you can put it on your screen and you can share it. Share screen. We'll just do share screen. Does that work out, Jenny?
I can do mine very quickly.
Good.
I can share very quickly. I mean,
Okay,
like
hang on.
I can send it on the chat.
Oh, okay. Then I'll share it. I will stop sharing now. And chat. There's a chat. Jenny, you're ready to rock and roll?
I also sent it in the chat since I'm on Zoom from my phone, so it's hard to share screen.
That's fine. I will
Thank you.
download Knox and then I'll download yours. Workshops, week 4. And I'll create a new folder, mask. And I'll drop them in there. Okay, so there we go. and then I will download yours. I'll download that one.
I added mine to the chat, but I can share my screen.
Okay, yeah, yours has come through differently for some reason.
Yeah, it's because I took a picture from my phone and then I transferred the picture to my laptop, and then so it's like, yeah, it's not in JPEG or anything like that. So it might be a bit complicated. Otherwise, I'll just share my screen and I can send
Yeah,
it
we'll
later.
get you to share your screen in a moment, Barbara, for sure. But I've saved it in the hope that I can open it up later. So we've got Caitlin, Lily, and Alice. What are you doing? You're going to just share your screens?
I can share my screen.
Great,
I'm just
thank
in the
you.
process of sending it to my computer.
No worries. Yep, I understand. So with this is where if you're in a room with participants, they'd all be milling around and they'd be putting stuff up, and they'd already be starting to look at the wall, right? And what's gone up on the wall. So we're doing it obviously a little bit more clunkily than that. But what I will do is got to go and find. That's right. I'll go and I'll open up Jenny and Knox images, and we will start with Knock, who was the first one to get it. Is there someone talking to me?
It's just Alice. I'm just also sharing from my phone to computer, so I will soon put it up as well.
That's fine, Alice. You keep chipping away at that, and I'm going to open up Knox one for us now. Share, jump to this. There we go. And first of all, people can just look at it, admiring it, and then we'll ask Knock in about a minute or so to tell us what's going on for her. Can you see the words there that Knock wrote? My problem is I've got this big bar across there, so I can't see it because I'm sharing the screen. Maybe it'll go away in a minute, but I know what you've said, Knock. I saw it before I put it up. So, before you hear from the audience, Knock, tell us about your mask, please.
It's actually kind of like the maybe leftover feeling from this morning, and or like for maybe the theme of this year. I just feel a lot of self-reflection, and there are a lot of kind of a lot of emotion about me in relation to others, and the things that I how I react to certain things, and mostly is like it's actually, I think it's fear, and and I drew out the fear in all the five senses, like things in my head, what I'm hearing, what I'm like, and I'm like, and I don't my eyebrows are twisting, trying to unravel it, like feeling tense in a way, but trying to escape it in a way, and also like I cannot smell, because when I'm in fear, then it's like everything tensed up, and expression, my facial expression, it's a wave, because it changes, and with heavy heart, that's kind of like how I expressed through the drawing of this mask.
Yeah. Wow. Whew. I think that's something that most of us deal with some of the time, at least, Knock. But yeah, it's fascinating the way you've captured that. All right, reflections from others. Anybody want to add something here?
I can add something. I think it's very interesting with the purple and the blue little twirls. I don't know what to call them because they really symbolize, I think, like how thoughts can be shaped. We just get twisted into them, and then we don't really know always how to sort them out or how to deal with them. So I think it's a very beautiful visualization of the nature of thoughts.
Caitlin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and the first thing I'm doing is finding ways to read against the grain, I guess. Like I'm looking at the kind of heavy hearts and black lines at the bottom, and there's a sense in which they're kind of like dragging down, but you could also read them as propping up.
That's nice reframing.
And I'm interested too in the yellow lines, which could be maybe like sun rays through clouds, or they even look a little bit like parting curtains to me.
You're making Nock smile. That's good. Lilia, what are your thoughts?
I was struck from the sentence of the voice of the mask. I think we can all somehow relate to that.
Yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, there's several things to go back on the twirly lines. I love how they're inside the head and then they come out. Like it feels like sometimes where we have a lot of thoughts mixed with emotion, it's like we are radiating them as well around us. And it feels like they're like steaming above the head. And I think this really captures that. And also about the yellow lines that Caitlin mentioned, to me it feels like this is all very heavy, and we all experience this at some point. I know that I have a lot of imposter syndrome that I have to work through, so I can understand that am I good enough? But also the yellow lines, to me, it feels like even though there's all this, there's always rays of hope that can try and pass the clouds, and lift everything up. So yeah, I really like it.
Nice. Alice, any other thoughts? Maybe you're not there. Or you're stuck in limbo. Okay, what? Oh, let's check. So we've got two others here as well. But before I download those, I will stop share and go and open up the second one, which is from Jenny, right? Oh, they're supposed to be from Jenny. Where is it hiding? Oh, that's interesting. I thought I'd opened up both of them, but I've only opened up one. Bear with me just for one moment. Here we go. It's a very interesting process because it illustrates for me particularly how personal futures work gets. Yours is on its side. Oh, I'm going to have to tip it over. How do I do that? Do that. And there we go. I've got it. And I'll move it up here. And I'll share.
I'm so sorry. I'm keeping cutting out. So
that's okay. Just hang in there. Hang in there.
Yeah. But I just want to say that I felt a really strong feeling from your mask, Nock, because I really resonate with that. heaviness and sense of, yeah, not feeling enough. So I thought your mask was very, yeah, I had a strong sense of that. Thank you.
So, Jenny, it's your moment. Tell us what's that. It's very interesting, mask. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of the mask sort of like a map. So a map of some sort of view. And I also thought about how things often gets into conflict with each other, and how we always look for some sort of balance. And I really related to what you said about I don't know if it was today, but sometime you talked about nature and the connectedness with nature and so on. And I really think about nature as a way of being connected and present, in contrast with all the shoulds and have to do's that we have in our lives. So this is basically a map or a mask on the division in like life in the time that we're living in, and how I can feel also like I feel mostly like myself in nature when I feel connected to nature's elements, but I also have to be in the other part of the mask. So it's sort of a balancing project.
Beautiful. Nock, what are your thoughts in listening to Jenny's reflection there?
Marcus, do you mind putting her mask back on the screen? We're watching the
Supposed
slide
to have
right now.
disappeared. Sorry. I was pulling down everybody else's, so it flipped. And normally it doesn't. It's been very poorly behaved. Sorry about that. You should have yelled at me sooner.
Yeah, it's really nice way to capture the balance between, like life, like doing work and personal and work, and we spend most of our most of our time actually in the office or doing work, and yeah, and not as much connecting to the nature and putting together or balancing the both is actually very important. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful. Lilia, what are your thoughts? You had nature in your Roman house, didn't you?
I wanted to ask Jenny about the clock in the eye because it struck me. I really love it.
Yeah, it's like in that part of the mask, the time is probably the most present element, I would say. There's always a time to be able to get to somewhere and so on. So maybe if we were to look at this part of the mask as some kind of achievement side and like the tangible values, and the other one as more untangible, that's connected to time, I would say. And also I consider time a unnecessary thing. It's a construct to get like different systems to work, and that is of course needed. But I would say that for us humans to be able to flourish as much as possible, we would probably be better off without the time.
Love it. Yeah. Anybody else want to add something?
I might have missed this Oh, I might have
Go
missed
ahead,
this,
Ale.
Jenny, because it was like my internet is really bad. But the line that is going between them, it seems so like clear. And I wondered if there might be like some micro holes in it, which we can't see, where it kind of blurs or seeps between them. But yeah, maybe you commented on that already. I might have missed that.
No, I actually didn't. I thought about the line sort of as the division in yin and yang. But it's a very interesting thought about the micro holes that connects them together, because of course they're connected in many ways. So that was very interesting input.
It's really nice. I also really like the kind of map mask idea. That yeah, I mean sometimes you can map a lot from someone's face, right? Yeah, you know, it's kind of like a map as well. Yeah, it's nice.
It's very interesting, you know, when you so you've got the mask there, and it doesn't have holes for your eyes to look through. It's worth putting some holes, Jenny, at some point so you can see through, not necessarily cut out the eyes because they're very special, but to actually hold it in front of your face. It's kind of in that sort of old shamanic sense of you become a wolf, or you become a tree, or you become whatever the mask is in a more embodied way. So you say nature pulls us from our heads into our bodies. The mask has always been something deep in our cultures. All cultures have had mask traditions that go right back to very early times. The cave paintings that you found in Lascaux and places like that in the south of France, there are people there who are clearly enacting an animal or something in a kind of shamanic way. So I would recommend for you all to think about doing that, trying that feel. What does it feel like? Because remember my last point on that slide, which is now hidden behind this thing here, was how do you feel when you look at yourself with that mask? But I should keep moving because I've suddenly become horribly aware of time. We've got about half an hour to go. So I'm opening that, and I'll open that one, and I will open that one. Oops, that one's already open, I think. Let's see which ones have opened and which ones haven't. So we're back on Jenny's mask, yes? Yeah. Okay, so I'll stop the share and I will open up whoever's the lucky person to have theirs next online. Let's have a look. Barbara, I've opened you twice for some reason, so you can talk. I'll just drag that up there. Make it bigger. That's very interesting. And you've done a Carnivale mask. That sort of that look. Bing, bing. Okay, so please, Barbara, over to you.
Okay, so yes, I started actually with like a normal face mask, and then I decided to do something different that covers only half the face. So there's lots of things in there, and basically to me it represents everything that life does or that life has to offer. And for me, the message here is to embrace chaos, something that I'm learning to do every day, and that to fully experience everything that life has to offer and to welcome it for the good and the bad part, and just become an explosion of experiences. And yes, and it's all mapped out in the reflected in the mask. It's got everything, and emotions and material, and yeah, just colors, and yeah, and it's just life. It's messy and it's beautiful, and yeah, we should all embrace that.
Did you write a sentence to go with it, Barbara?
Yes, I did, but at the back of the past, so I'll just add it to the chat.
Okay.
But it's basically what I said is embrace the chaos and experience everything that life has to offer.
Okay. Very nice. Caitlin, what are you seeing there?
I like how like you've got the suns or the stars in the right hand of the mask, but then all the edges of the mask are kind of limned with that light. And yeah, it's got that kind of sense of like shining or casting a light on the like everything. Like there's nothing in shadow too much.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Thanks. Lilia, what are you seeing here?
It's hard. It's a lovely mask, Barbara. I love it, and it gives me the sensation of happiness for some reason. Because life is chaos, but it's a willingness to take what is the good part of it.
Nock, how about you?
I really appreciate the process that went through for Barbara because it's like different from mine. I feel like, and even the message is like, I want to learn. I aspire to become like that, to embrace everything. Because even for me, when I did it, it was like fear of not producing a good enough piece, like, and that came out. And by listening to Barbara, it's like, okay, you don't have to be in that mode all the time, like, so like, yeah, it's good to listen to that and yes, to embrace to embrace the what life gives us, not to hold back too much or not to hide. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I started this, not like I had the same thought as you. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. Is it going to be good enough? Is it? And then I was like, you know what? Like, I don't care. I'm just gonna, and then I don't have like a huge amount of materials and colors and stuff. So I was just like, I'm just gonna do what happens, and then I'm just gonna see how it turns out. And I had my idea of showing happiness. So I'm glad, Lilia, that you felt happy looking at the mask, because that's kind of what I was aiming for. And I was just like, it's just life. It's just chaos, and it's not always planned, and we don't always have a grand plan of how it should be structured. So I'm just gonna do things and then see what happens.
That's beautiful, Barbara. Yeah, if you listen to the session that we recorded on Saturday, one of the things Marguerite says early on is she's interested in process, not the product. So the process is what you just described, Barbara. You're just going to do. You're not going to worry whether it looks good or right or wrong, or that sort of thing. And I think it's, the world that we've been born into and obviously introduced to via education and everything has conditioned us to think that the product is the purpose of it. There has to be a purpose, and that the product is either good or bad, right or wrong, and so on. Where in actual fact, the futures workshop process is always process, and people might come out of a workshop feeling uplifted or clearer in the head, or maybe they come out totally confused. You can't actually be held accountable for how they come out, because it very much is reflective of what's going on in here, which of course is what the mask is trying to touch on, what's going on in here, and so on. So I think that's really interesting. Unless Alice or Jenny want to say something, I'm going to jump to the next one in a minute, but I just wanted to say something here. Can you see the cursor that I'm moving around? Thanks. So this eye is really interesting. It's the bright open eye. This one's kind of like saying to me, I'm just going to check this out. It's more like one eye is totally open and the other one is more intellectually aware, more critical in that kind of sense of what's going on here. Not negative. It's not an evil eye or anything like that. But the two eyes represent two different forms of consciousness, for me at least. I'm looking at it thinking that's really, really very interesting. So I just wanted to add that to that one.
Yeah, but you're right. I think like the brownish eye is more like grounded into like I guess like material world, that I say, like something more tangible, more reality, whereas the other one is just open for everything. And also I wanted to say, but like, yeah, the first thought I had was like, oh, is it going to be good enough? But then I realized, and especially with art things, good enough for who it might be good enough for me and not good enough for you. And so that's where I decided, you just have to let go of that. And yeah. That's...
Yes, exactly. And I think that's in the lecture that I talk, when I'm talking about this process, I tell the little story of a lady in Taiwan who, when I set this up for them, she went into this incredible fear state because she felt she had to, the product, and she'd presumably been told by a teacher she couldn't draw or something. So she was, but she talked to me and I kind of eased her into it, and she just started playing around. She came out the other end with a mask up on the wall with everybody else's, and she felt totally, it's kind of like a ghost had been cast out, that suddenly she felt really empowered by having got over the fear. So that was, I don't know if you listened to my lecture, but that, to me, that story stayed with me because it's so, I'm also have for many years taught music and other things. I see people deal with fear. I can't sing, or, I'm tone deaf, or, I've heard that so many times, I tell you, and I sort of roll my eyes and sort of bite my lip and sort of go, and that's their stuff. And then my role is obviously to enable. And of course, that's what we're trying to do with Futures stuff. We're trying to enable thinking process and also a sense of openness, like your mask, Barbara, to alternatives or possibilities. Yeah. So enough from me. Lilia, you have a green mask. I like that very much.
Yes.
Tell us about your mask, please.
Just 1 second. My computer.
It's about to run out of power.
Battery. Yes, should be fine. Yes. Okay. So I tell you a little bit about this mask. I wanted to start with the connection mask, a mask about connection with the other human being and nature. And then also because this workshop is recorded. So the first one I picked was the more acceptable kind of voice to share. And then I was, okay, let's do scared before, because I felt that before the connection mask that I will do after the workshop, I needed to do the scared mask. And this is very simple. It's a not looking scared mask, because I think that in our culture, emotions are not really still allowed, still a taboo. And so the scared mask, it's a mask that make the person safe, not expressing emotion. However, they leak from the cry and the scratch here, and emotion are represented by color. So there is a double face in this mask, because it doesn't appear scared, but actually it's scared. It is scared, and the way that make the person wearing it feel safe, it's covering emotions.
Jenny, what are you seeing there? Thank you, Lilia.
I think it's it's very interesting, and I really agree, Lilia, about how feelings is not really encouraged. We're not really encouraged to show them, and I think also it's kind of usual to feel like you put weight on somebody else's shoulders when you express your feelings if they're not very positive, for example. So it makes me think about also the conflict between culture and personal voice in this micro and macro perspective, that feelings in the personal level is like pulled away for the more civilized level or collective level, and it's complicated. I really like your mask and your story, and it's an important subject to address.
Thank you, Jenny. Alice, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, I agree with Jenny as well, that it feels very like it is this oh, I'm so bad at remembering this name, but you know, when you are doing something opposite to what you're feeling, what's it called, this word? Anyway, yeah, I feel like it is interesting, this and this idea that we are all maybe actors on a stage, you know, in our own whatever, and it is the sort of stage is set by the culture that we are and the context that we seem to be in. I mean, how we perceive it as well. Yeah, it is. I really like it, Lilia. I was also just curious though, because again, my internet is cutting. Maybe you explain, but in the bottom here with the colors, is that the true one, the true person who is like actually got lots of different colors in them? Or, you know, the little...
You mean the two lines or the scratch here?
Ah, is that the scratch? Sorry. Okay. I looked almost like a person with lots of colors, and I thought, oh, maybe that is like the true little person who is still shining through somehow with lots of feelings.
Yeah, that's also agree with you. It's the emotion that are anyway there underneath.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
in a
really
sense,
nice.
you're right. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's great. Barbara, you can be reflecting, and I'll start to pull up the last of the images, which I think was Alice's, isn't it?
So I
think
really like this
Caitlin
mask.
as well. Sorry.
Have I done? Oh, Caitlin, where's your? Oh, you got to share yours. I don't have it here, do I? All right. Yeah. We'll go to. We'll do Alice, and then we'll end with Caitlin. So I'll start finding Alice's one. Well, Barbara, you please. What are you seeing in that lovely green mask? I'm going to leave it there for one more moment.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's really true that we're not encouraged to show our emotions, and something that I want to mention as well, that often when we say things like that, we feel what we think about, we're not allowed to show negative emotions, which is true. But I think as well that a lot of the times we're not allowed to show too much positive emotions either. Like if you're too happy or too content with your life, then people around you get jealous or suspicious, or there's kind of a misalignment that happens, and the same process happens even when you're showing like you're truly happy, or you're like really empowered with your life. I think maybe it like creates some sort of misalignment, and so we're not allowed to show any emotions, like too much positive or too much negative. We kind of always have to stay within the box of a little bit of negative, a little bit of positive, and just like be average. We always have to be average in emotions to be okay in society. I don't know. I mean, it's not everywhere like this. I'm supposing, but definitely in France, it's very much like that. If you're too happy, it's not okay, and if you're too not unhappy, it's not okay either. So but it still transpires, and I really like this little window that you have there. Yeah, and yeah, and I think I'm going to do some work with some kids, and I know that I've been talking to some doctors and like paramedical people, like osteopath and chiropractors, and they're saying like in the last 5 years or so they saw an increase in young people cutting themselves and not yeah, not wanting to get undressed in front of them because of that. And they've never seen that many before. Like it's increasing quite a lot. And to me, it's very representative of what's going on in our society right now, and how much of a gap there is between the micro and the macro, and the clash between the two. And I think this mask, it really made me think of that.
Thank you. That's beautiful, and yeah, and it shows you that the mask and the world they leak into one another in ways that, and as we reflect, let's say if we were having this conversation, if it was in a workshop, we might have an hour or more, and people might be breaking into groups at tables and talking through and really going very deeply into reading and rereading the masks. Because even a mask has more than one voice in a sense, but what we're touching on here is really quite deep. So, Alice, and your line. Now I saw it. What was your thing in chat that you said? Can you tell us your line that goes with your mask?
Yeah. On my tears, seeds of change.
On my tears.
That was the mask itself talking, because. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't. It's on the side because I.
Yes, no, I'm just saying that.
But
which way? That's right.
Oh, you can do it. Oh, brilliant!
I'm magic.
Yes.
I'm magic.
Yeah. So, well, I really loved the process. I felt like I was reminded of Caitlin when it was our Saturday session, and you showed your mask, your death mask, Caitlin. And you were talking about how it just, you just let it happen and there was no kind of plan. And so that's what I did. So, but I was kind of at the beginning thinking about, when we were thinking about voices, for me, I was thinking like, I don't know how to say that it's a voice, but of cycles, of like a cyclical voice, and that things are constant change, and but not change necessarily, like constant sort of renewal and and I had not much materials, but I had like some from outside. So, and I realized we're just entering autumn here, and it's kind of a mixture of really, like, you can see things breaking down, and like these brown bean leaves, and then you have like still some flowers which are coming, and some buds, and then these nasturtium seeds. Yeah, so anyway, and then I kind of was thinking about that as I was making it. I was thinking about how maybe sometimes in our cognitive we have this sort of sense that everything is breaking down, and so that's why it's kind of up here in the head a bit, like in the brain, but like everything is kind of falling apart, but actually things then grow from that. So and that maybe it is within more our senses that we can actually somehow see that things do grow from things that fall apart. And then when I actually put the mask on to look in front of the mirror, these nasturtium seeds just fell down because they were a bit heavy and the glue was not so good. And that's why I put this my tears, seeds of change, because it made me think how, our things that we maybe feel sorrow for is actually sometimes what drives us, to.
Yeah.
So I was imagining these seeds just falling onto the earth, and anyway, that's my mask.
Beautiful. Really,
it was
beautiful.
fun to make.
I love the nasturtium seeds, I think, and as tears, they're so evocative. Just who wants to say something, because we're looking at time. I'll let one of you say something, but we need to move on, otherwise we'll totally burst our bubble with time. Does anybody have anything you really would love to say? I just think it's beautiful. for a start, but I don't want to be the person being the mouth.
Maybe just very quickly. I love your mask, Alice. It's beautiful. And it resonates with me a little bit of it's beautiful and melancholic because tomorrow it's not going to be the same because there are also fresh flowers and so on. And I think this is also the beauty of life because we are here temporarily. And yeah, it made me think just this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Caitlin, share. I'll stop sharing. And if you share, please.
Yeah, I've been I had a good time doing collagey things, so I decided to keep doing that today. And I decided to do my hopeful voice, because I would like to, get in touch with that a bit more. And I think it's needed. So I ended up pulling a lot of warm colors, and also a lot of fabrics, including there was like a dress that looked like a butterfly leaf, and some picnic table fabric, and some capsicums, because lately I've been cutting open my capsicums and they have when the capsicums get a smaller capsicum inside them,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, and it's just really nice. It's like, oh, it's growing a new capsicum. And yeah, so I ended up pulling, a lot of warm colors, a lot of fabric kind of textures. And I felt like the message that was coming through was something like, I got you, you are swaddled, but not too tightly. Something along those lines.
Jenny, thank you, Caitlin. It's beautiful. It's a fantastic mask too. Jenny, how about, what are you seeing there?
I really like all the colors, and I I can relate to the thought about how warm colors feels hopeful or happier than cold shades of color. And it also made me think about a peacock, like how they just put all their feathers out, and they become so majestic when they do that. And maybe it could be some kind of metaphor to hope. Like we put all our colors out there and then we feel more hopeful. I don't know.
Color theory, hope. I love it. Yeah. Anybody else want to add another reflection? I will go back to my PowerPoint if you can stop sharing, please, Caitlin. I hope you don't mind, but I took a snip of that so that I've added it to the collection of masked images. So I'm going to jump up to, where is it hiding? I'll have to go and find it. So, oh, no. What am I doing? I'm being crazy. Yeah, I've got to find, what am I doing wrong here? I'm going to share that again first for a moment, then I'm going to stop sharing because I opened up the wrong thing. And every time I tried to get out of it, it was threatening to close the whole Zoom session down. So yeah, that was my lack of skill. Here we go. That's what I want, and I will share that. So after this kind of session, I then move to sort of a final reflection type things. So I'm going to pull that back to that, move you over there. So what happens then? So a few things that I reflected on with the group. So pressing a voice will give it power. So we've got to give, if we can voice those things. So the fear thing, Nock, that you were talking about, or the lack of self-confidence, or the "are my tears, seeds for tomorrow," these are these voices, are ongoing, and they live within us as and we can give them forms as masks. One thing you might want to, when you've got, let's say, some time, I know we're all busy, but it would be worth making a mask a day for 30 days for an entire month, keeping them with a message for each one. And then you look at your month and you can see how many different voices are at work. So it's kind of form of journaling, but it's visual journaling with very little actual words. It's much more of that embodied stuff that Jenny, you spoke about. Nature brings you into your body. So it's very much that. So if we address our voices, we give them space, and that builds a sort of dynamic field of being, of our consciousness, becomes much more interactive with the world around us and so on. Okay. And of course, because it's micro, it's individual and collective simultaneously. And of course, the point for me is that the world is a rich play of these voices. These are emotionally charged, and they shape how we see, perceive, sense make, wayfind, whatever it is, the world. When we see the voices of many, for instance, the way we've shared our masks today, we can see how the world works as a collective consciousness. And in the very last slide, my last reflection is that change is incremental, but it's guaranteed. It will always keep unfolding, right? To be more conscious of our voices gives us a greater input into how the future will be. There's an individual pedagogy and a collective pedagogy at work. So we are always learning. I really feel that it's important to remember that we learn in a collective field, and that, the so-called teacher is in fact a co-learner. So we learn as individuals through our relationships, we learn as collectives through institutions and our institutions. And one of those institutions, a key one, is the institutions that reinforce memory. Okay, that reinforce, these are the narratives that our nation state or our office work or our school or wherever we are, and our home as well, that all these voices come together as narratives that make sense, but often are limiting, partial, possibly even toxic, that do not help us in ways that, as I think futurists who are trying to unleash human potential, ours and everybody else's, and beyond the potential of the planet, there's so much more to be done in that space. And to me, that's really important. So thank you very much for that, for joining in, taking the risk and so on. As always, I'll do, everybody can say a final last words, and then we will end the recording and the session. So who wants to kick off? Who wants to say something about this whole experience? Would you go and try it yourself somewhere? Try it on someone or some group in some other situation? Or are you going to take the 30-day mask challenge? That would be very interesting if some of you were to do that, and then we could reflect, at the end of this FUT202 series of lectures, we could have a reflection and sharing. Maybe even publish a kind of online book or something in which we take these journeys. That might be nice. Anyway, that's enough from me.
Yeah, I love the idea of, I like this as a way of practicing embodied journaling. I love it, really, because there's so much in the process, brings up so much thoughts, like it's kind of it's very bi-directional. The materials are also creating thought justice, it's, yeah, really nice.
Yeah, thank you.
I like seeing a range of masks today, which kind of tackled the task from all sorts of different directions. And I think it shows, that multiplicity of voices within the collective. And it would be interesting, like, doing a kind of mask journaling activity, because in addition to the multiplicity of voices in the collective, you'd also then get an indication of the multiplicity within an individual as well.
Yeah.
I honestly truly appreciate this exercise. I think it's the it brings me to be in touch with myself, my feeling, my consciousness. um and I'm more, yeah, mindful about what's going on during the process. And it's like, yeah, I listened to YouTube recently that like your mind, the your thought is the projection of your bodily sensation, and sometimes yeah, and being aware of that is very important to change your memories or to change a different future.
Yeah.
And actually, I also have a question in my mind that if I were to do this with some organizations that are driven by evidence, data, like how could I uh, in convince them to try? Or yeah, I mean, and yeah, like, because they might just think that it's too, yeah,
I
emotion
understand,
is not supposed to be included
but
or
emotion
something.
is data.
Yeah, sure.
And I've been reading some of the futures books around me, and a couple of them, one particularly the old Juvenal, who was writing in the 60s and 70s, he was talking about futures data and so on. So there are different ways, but you would need to prepare the organisation with a logic for why the voice data is important in understanding, let's say, organizational dynamics. Perhaps productivity is not what it used to be, and it would be a way of getting people back in touch with their deeper stories to perhaps reveal how they might restory in order to generate a more productive organizational culture or something like that. But you would need a champion on the inside. You need the CEO or, the person in charge of human resources, whatever you're dealing with, to be on site. And you need to walk them through the logic of voice work. And well, I know that Barbara, you've worked a bit with Sahel now. He uses voice dialogue work all the time. I'm assuming that you've encountered it with Sahel. But also that the CLA of self is another version of voice dialogue. Okay, so there are different processes, and Sahel has he doesn't come in and say, I'm going to do the futures mirror or CLA only. There's always a logical, he kind of turns the temperature up in the room as he goes along. So you start off with some simple evidence gaining things, and you'd work through some processes, and then you'd say, you get to a point where you do a CLA of self, or you do a voice, a futures mirror type exercise, which is always going to be kind of risky for people in the room. They'll feel a little threatened, so you have to prepare them for that. You wouldn't just do it, but you could include it as one of the tools in your toolkit, which when you're being approached by an organization who wants you to do something, you can say, this is one of the tools, it's this kind of thing, and the evidence is much more to do with an inner knowledge of your relationship with your organization and how your identity is aligned or misaligned in that space. Jenny, looks like you were ready to rock and roll before Nock asked that question.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think this was a very nice session. I feel very grounded, and it made me think a lot about how, at least myself, think about words as the most powerful communicating tool. But in this way, we get to see and also hear when we talk about each other's masks, and that is a more powerful way of creating space for voice, because if we were only talking about something, then all the people listening would create their own pictures in their heads about what we mean. And now we get to be a part of the visual and the like the oral part of the thoughts around a subject. It's very interesting.
Thank you. Great. Lilia, yeah.
I just wanted to add that I'm also like Jenny, feel more grounded, and I'm gonna try this 30 days exercise and see what happens. Also because I'm gonna be in different homes and different places, so it's gonna be a challenge also find materials and stuff. So this is gonna be part of the process.
Dealing with the challenge, fantastic. And Barbara, last words from you, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, I really resonate with what Jenny just said, and I felt like it was a really powerful way to, instead of talking and using words that may be interpreted differently by different people, just having this visual, it also binds emotions with words and more tangible things. And I think that's often lacking when we just use words or descriptions or things like that. And I think that it brings out the emotions, which I think is very important, to something to explore within ourselves, and to understand the emotions of society, for example.
Nice, thank you.